Welcome to News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery.
We're so glad to have you join us this morning, and you're going to love our guest today. This is Trish Speight. She's the Executive Director of the Recording Library of West Texas. And the Recording Library of West Texas has their mission of giving audio recordings to enrich the lives of people who cannot access the printed word due to a visual, physical, or learning impairment. And I've been acquainted with the Recording Library of West Texas and in other communities for some time, and I know what a tremendous niche it fills for those who need it. But I also know that the people who haven't had an occasion to use it don't even know it's there. And that's one of the reasons I wanted you to know what a wonderful asset we have in this area and all of the services it provides, because someday you or somebody you know is going to need it. So Trish Speight, thank you so much for coming to the studio this morning and talking to us about this wonderful organization. But before we talk about it, I want us to talk about you and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Thank you for having me here. I'm a native Midlander. I was born in Midland. My mother was actually born in Midland, and one of my children was born here, so we've been around a while. I went to Midland High. My husband and I met there. We went to college and came back. We've been in Midland back since about 1999.
Oh, good.
And I grew up here. My dad owned a KCRS radio station, so know all about Midland very well. And but I did not know about the Recording Library when I first moved back here, and that led me. I was reading a newspaper article and about it, and I thought, well, that's a really great thing for people to have, and I should be involved in it. So I became a volunteer. And
so did your father's radio station ever do anything with this?
No, I started the Recording Library radio station. It's just been on the air about 3 years. But before he passed away, he and I did talk about it a lot, and he let me know what was possible and how I should go about things, so he was very helpful.
Oh, good. Okay, well, now that we've got that out of the way, sure, and we see the connection of how you ended up at this agency, tell us a little bit about the history,
sure,
of it.
The agency's been around since 1950, and there was a local Midland...
64 years.
50 years. Local woman, her name was Mamie Martin, and she had a successful business, but she started to lose her eyesight, and she recruited friends to record things for her, and so she started the service out of her home. And then it grew. More people needed it. They were recording her Sunday school lessons and books for her. So she was a member at First Presbyterian Church in Midland, and they offered a piece of property, which is not there anymore, but they built a building, and they started, and it was called the Tape Lending Library. And they had that name up into the 80s. And that's really what it was just a tape lending library. They did a lot of work with the hospital, with patients in the hospital, as well as our older citizens who need audio materials. In the 80s, they changed the name to the Recording Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped. That was sort of in vogue in the 80s to have a name that was very descriptive of who you were serving. But we changed the name to the Recording Library of West Texas because that was about 6 years ago, because we feel like a lot of people who use our services are not blind. They just have an impairment that makes reading print difficult. We even have some people who use our services who still drive, and they drive to our office, but they just can't read print because it's without a huge magnification device. Or without
so much strain on their eyes.
Yes, they do. There's a lot of different conditions.
But you know, I was surprised to know about the physical impairment, numbers of people with physical or learning disabilities.
There's a lot of people who maybe have Parkinson's, or they have weakness in their limbs from multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy, and they can't hold material for a long time. And so audio is their best option.
Or sometimes hold their necks and
Exactly.
heads up.
And then the third segment, we vision impaired, and then people with physical disabilities, but then we also serve people with learning disabilities like dyslexia. A lot of times being able to hear that audio increases their comprehension, and that's been around for a long time. People used to have kids listening to records. So we can help with all of those segments of the population.
And so, so it started by one woman who needed it,
Yes.
and then it spread from there. And so, where is it today? You are you're serving the whole West Texas area.
We do. We serve everybody in West Texas. We have patrons who use our services in Lubbock, in southeast New Mexico. We've even had some people in Central Texas that have called us. So we really don't have we try to stay focused on West Texas, but if someone needs a service, even if they're not in West Texas, we'll help them out.
And you also have a network, other places that maybe if they live closer to one or something.
Yes, we do. We try to refer them to those other places too.
Good. Well, now you've talked about the recordings, but talk about the radio, because that's just really, really interesting.
It is a unique thing. When I became a volunteer, I didn't know that services like that existed, and just a chance meeting with someone at a dinner party who lived in North Carolina told me, well, I do that. I volunteer too. And I said, oh, you do? And she said, I read newspapers on the radio. And I thought, well, we should do that. So that's when I started asking questions. And
your dad kind of gave you a heads up.
And so he helped me figure it out. And we're one of 4 services like that in the state of Texas. There's Dallas. It's called Reading and Radio Resource. There's one in Houston, and there's one in San Antonio, and us in Midland.
Good. And so you do things that are in the newspaper as well as books and other things. Okay, we're going to have to take a break right now. We'll be back in just a minute and continue this conversation.